Welcome back. It is 6 minutes past 12. You are listening to the Mid-Morning Talk on Salam Media, and this is our Youth Day special. And because it's our Youth Day special, we decided to have some youth activists, some youth leaders to join us for this panel discussion discussing issues that are affecting South African youth. Let me introduce the panel. We have Amara Garda, who is studying towards her master's in development economics. She's a research intern at Socioeconomic Rights Institute of South Africa, SERI, head of politics, South African and international affairs at the Union of Muslim Students Association, or MSA. Assalamu alaikum, Amara. We also have...
How are you, Mariam?
Alhamdulillah, shukran. We also have Hafid Mohammed Uzair Bamji, who is master's student in psychology at UKZN and a student psychologist, professional cyclist, and head of campus affairs and emerging markets for the MSA Union. Assalamu alaikum, Mohammed.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, Mariam?
Alhamdulillah, shukran. And we also have South Africa's youngest journalist. He's a writer, podcaster, and broadcaster, focusing mainly on socio-political issues facing South Africa and its people. Also the host of the special show focus on Salam Media, where he interrogates one of the biggest headlines of the week, Zahid Jadwat. Assalamu alaikum, Zahid. Shukran for joining me.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a pleasure to be on the show. I just want to confirm, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you. Can everybody hear one another?
Yeah.
All right, alhamdulillah. Right, let's get the show on the road. It is a Youth Day today, and 45 years later, after the 1976 protest march that took place, we are here and we still find ourselves with issues that needs to be dealt with, issues that need to be discussed and tackled a little bit differently compared to how they are being tackled at the moment. So I'm going to start off with this question: what does Youth Day mean to you? And I would like each and every one of you to answer that question. Let's start with you, Amara. What does Youth Day mean to you?
To be honest, it doesn't mean much. Apart from being a public holiday, I don't really feel like it's a celebration. I know it's meant to be. It's also meant to be like a reflection on the lives that were lost and the people that really fought hard in their youth for apartheid to end. But as a young person at the moment, it's one of those days where, you know, you hear again false promises that are repeated throughout the year. But the actual day doesn't really symbolize much for me personally, because things on the ground I don't really see changing.
What about you, Hafid Mohammed?
So, you know, in all honesty, as Amara said, it should have been a day, it should be a day actually where we celebrate what was achieved. And yes, some goodness has come out of it, but unfortunately, there's not much that we can actually say how much of change has actually been made. So there's really not much to celebrate apart from it being a public holiday, but it's also an opportunity for us as youth to reflect. What can we do better? How can we now uplift the world that we're currently living in? So I'd say there's pros and cons to it, and I think we'll unpack that later throughout the show.
Zahid, what does Youth Day mean to you?
I do concur with the fellow panelists on this panel, on this show, and what they're saying about, you know, today supposedly being a day of celebration, but we still find ourselves grappling with many issues which essentially are the same issues that the youth who protested in Soweto in 1976, June the 16th. There's similar issues. I think also a lot of the time when we speak about youth and June 16th, we often think it was primarily and perhaps only the issue of Afrikaans being implemented as a medium of instruction. However, at the time, it was also a lot more than was being protested against. For example, the situation that they were living in at the time. And if we look at how things have turned out today, unfortunately, not much has changed. And we've got to have this conversation. And I think celebration, it's not yet the time to celebrate as yet.
Yeah, definitely. I also agree with the celebration part. We cannot celebrate just yet because, I mean, we still find ourselves with so many issues that we need to sort out. We need to work on as a country. Now, student activism is not something new in South Africa. I mean, we've seen this taking place with the youth in 1976. And as Zahid mentioned, that it wasn't just about the Bantu education, but also other issues that they were facing, like the issues of carrying passes, the issues of the living conditions, etc. And how important is youth activism in light of Youth Day? Amara, would you like to start?
Yeah, no, I think it's absolutely pivotal. To be honest, what's sad is when we do see youth taking up struggles. I'm specifically thinking of FISMA's fall here. We tend to see, this really brutal reaction from the state, but we also tend to see a very unfriendly, I don't know, judgment that's cast upon youth who are willing to be active and are willing to stand up and say, there's rights that we are owed, that are not being fulfilled. So I think it's absolutely pivotal for youth to come forward, and protest for whatever cause it is they believe in. But at the same time, I think it's also absolutely necessary for everyone who's not necessarily youth or not necessarily active in a specific space, to support the youth that are. Yeah, honestly, I think once we start taking young people seriously, then we'll be able to see some change.
All right, Zahid, you as a young South African journalist, and you have interviewed some really big heads. So, do you think you are being taken seriously?
I mean, I think personally, to be able to have been able to carry out these opportunities, to be able to speak to the people that I have spoken, I think yes, perhaps I am being taken seriously, but I think it's also the behavior amongst people within my age gap. Of course, people a little bit, the youth who are a little bit older than me, perhaps they might be taken more seriously, but people in my age gap, I'm talking the 15 to 20 years old. I don't think we've actually been showing much interest, and so I think if one has to say that we're not being taken seriously, I understand why we're not being taken seriously to an extent, because we haven't really been showing that much of a keen interest. But of course, as people in an older age gap, I think in and around Mohammed Hussein and Amar age gap, people have been showing a keen interest. And if Amar was speaking from experience in saying that she feels as though young people are not being taken seriously, then I think she really makes an important point.
Mohammed, I'd like to ask you if the voice of the youth is being heard. I mean, especially with issues that affect the youth and international issues as well, like we've seen with the Palestine solidarity coming from the youth of South Africa, along with the rest of the world. But hold that thought. We're going to go for a quick break and we will continue thereafter.
To avoid calamity and despair, the Al Imdad Foundation gives you the opportunity to sponsor a share in a borehole in South Africa for just 1,000 Rand and provide what the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, called the best form of charity. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
Osman's Taj Mahal Spice and Rice. For over 80 years, Osman's Taj Mahal have been perfecting the art of the perfect blend of spices, pure, aromatic, and well-seasoned. Spices to tantalize your taste buds. From creative cuisines to gastronomical gourmet goodies. From exotic odors to traditional dishes, Osman's Taj Mahal have remained synonymous with quality spices and condiments. Taj Mahal rice, beans, and lentils. Try our range of chili bite mixes, rose and ilachi syrup, our quick and easy biryani pack, and our traditional range of spice blends. Osman's Taj Mahal, there is no substitute for quality.
Looking to get your kick Kiki's have now reopened on 235 Matthews Maiwa Road in Durban. Head on over for the Taste with Kick. We offer something scrumptious for everyone in the family. Wraps, chicken tikka, burgers, tender grills, mocktails, milkshakes, and so much more. Corporate and events catering available. Visit our social media pages for more info or call 031 209 0119. Kiki's, the Taste with Kick.
The two major dams for the Eastern Cape's biggest metro, Nelson Mandela Bay, are running dry with no major rain forecast. The city of Port Elizabeth is facing an unprecedented water crisis, home to an estimated 1.3 million people. The Al Fida Foundation needs your support to deliver water to impoverished areas. Support our water drive and help us raise monies for water delivery vehicles to ensure water distribution in areas of critical need. Donate your lilla to the Al Fida Foundation. Visit our website at www.alfida.co.za or contact us at 041 484 1288.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Welcome back. It is 12:18 rather. You are listening to the Youth Day special of the Mid-Morning Talk with me, Mari Mukwanda. And still joining me are my panel of youth leaders and activists in their own right. Shukran for staying with us to all of you. Mohammed, before the break, I asked you about the youth. Are the youth's voices being heard, especially when it comes to issues that are affecting the youth locally as well as internationally?
So, Mariam, I would say yes, in terms of, especially as you mentioned, the Palestine issue. In South Africa, specifically, obviously, I'm using it as context specific. So, within South Africa, yes, the youth have been playing an exceptional role, especially via social media. I mean, it was a time where I actually experienced unity, where everyone, regardless of what differences we had, we, especially now also amongst the Muslim community, but what is extremely uplifting as well was that we had support from non-Muslims as well, which made it easier for everyone else to understand that it's not a religious issue, it's a humanitarian issue. So in that aspect, yes, the voices of the youth are being heard, right? But let's take it a step further, as Amara and Brother Zahid also said, with regards to overall, Zahid said yes, people are amongst his age, maybe not, and he understands why and so forth. And I would like to turn this more towards the cultural aspect, especially now amongst the Indian culture, right? Unfortunately, not all the youth are being heard. It's really sad, despite what they are going out to achieve. Yes, there's pros and cons. There's always two sides where you would get people that aren't interested, and understandably, but that shouldn't be, when they speak, they shouldn't be given an opportunity, especially within schools, especially within institutions where the voices of the youth are extremely important. It could be that one instance where there's a welcoming experience and that creates a spark within an individual to take it further. So instead of individuals listening to the youth, instead of, and even if it makes no sense, you rather guide them towards the objective of and the goal, and educate them regarding the topics they are speaking about, instead of shutting them off. So on the cultural aspect, unfortunately, something that we really need to work on, and as difficult as it is to mention it, obviously on air, it's a reality, and we can't run away from it.
Amara, what are your thoughts on this, especially what Mohammed has just said, and you being a female coming from the Indian community? What are your thoughts regarding this?
No, it's incredibly difficult. And I mean, often when I speak about the Muslim community or the Indian Muslim community, I tend to use air quotes, because the word community implies, a certain level of support and a certain level of solidarity that I don't really think is always there in the space that we're talking about. So specifically, I think when it comes to issues of activism, there's some activisms that are more acceptable in social circles. And those activisms, I think, would probably be supported quite easily. When young people, as we've mentioned, take the issue of Palestine forward, I don't really know of anyone in the Muslim Indian community that would say, this person is just causing nonsense, or they're just troublemakers, or they're just entitled. It's a sort of a cause that everyone has accepted is noble. But when it comes to trying to introduce new issues and trying to discuss sometimes contentious issues, that's, I think, where a lot of young people face a lot of uphill from those who have the capacity to support them.
Right, let's talk about the issues that the youth are currently facing at the moment. Zahid, would you like to start?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the same that those students were protesting against in 1976. Of course, not everything, because of course the DOM pass has been abolished, for example. A lot has changed. But if you look at issues like sanitation, the quality of education, we saw the COVID-19 pandemic, which we are currently going through. We've seen the level of inequality that exists within the education system. We've seen how the students, for example, in private schools and from the more elite areas and affluent communities are able to have actually been able to go ahead with their education without much of a hindrance. It was just a matter of switching to different means of education. But if you look at kids in rural schools, as it is, even without a pandemic, it was extremely difficult for them to actually reach their schools in most instances. We've heard stories about children who actually have to walk for tens of kilometers just to get to school. And of course, that's not even mentioning the issues of, the poverty, the background of poverty that they come from. It simply does not allow them to access enough nutrition. So by the time they even get to school, they are weak and tired and not really in a space to be able to learn. And we've seen how they actually lag during the pandemic because they haven't been able to continue ahead with their education, especially during the lockdown. So we've seen those inequalities. We've also seen issues of sanitation. I mean, I live in Durban. It's a city, and we've seen, I see constantly so many sanitation issues, even within a city. And the issues actually are quite pervasive and prevalent in many aspects of our lives. It just depends from which angle you look at it. And yeah.
And obviously, another issue that we have seen at the moment is that of racism that is currently going on. We've been noticing a rise in protests, especially now parents coming forward and joining the protests as well with racism at schools. Um, Starting with you, Mohammed, how best do you think we can tackle this issue of racism? Do you think it's best for us to build our own schools that is meant for us, only, and not integrate with people of different races and societies? Would that be a viable way to resolve this issue of racism?
No, absolutely not. I don't think I don't think that would solve any problem. I think, in all honesty, that would create a bigger problem and to open a whole new can of worms. Look, in terms of when it comes to racism, it's sad to say that it's already 2021 and we're still experiencing it. We're still facing it. It's done a lot more strategically now, unfortunately, whereas in the past people would just speak about it openly and call people with derogatory terms. And in today's times, it's within households. It's amongst the Indian community. Certain terms have been used, and it's sad to see that's what's happening, because that not only goes against religion but against humanity as well. So building schools won't do anything. I think by educating and educating the youth firstly, and the older generation becoming more conscious about it. They say you can't straighten a bent stick, unfortunately. But I mean, this is not about straightening the stick. If the stick has to break, unfortunately, that's how it is. But you cannot be having these thoughts, because these thoughts are then passed down onto your children. No child is born racist. I mean, it's unfortunate that you get students in grade 1, grade 5. I've experienced that as well, where students are displaying racial tendencies or not playing with a certain race simply because my parents said so. I mean, why would you be doing that to your child? By putting them in that situation where there's a diverse population, not only does it open up their minds, but it helps them to cope later on in life in the real world, in all honesty. So yeah, by having separate schools, you're just going to dig a grave for yourself.
Because I mean, I have heard people saying that, hey, you know what? Instead of protesting outside at the school, why don't you build your own school? Rather build your own school because that would be better for you, better for your community. And we know that there are schools in those communities, but parents feel like their kids would get a better education when they take them, or if they take them to other schools, that they think that their kids will learn more about different races and different ethnicities and cultures as well. But we have this issue that we have to deal with, this elephant in the room. Amara, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you saw me laughing a little bit there, but I mean, obviously, I'm not laughing because the issue is funny. I think I'm laughing because the suggestion that it's as simple as build your own schools is really a farce. And it's firstly, it's not a practical solution. I'm not sure how many people just have money to build whatever schools they want to build. But as Mohammed Uzair has said, I think it's a convenient way of not dealing with the issue to sort of push people and say, you know what, go create your own spaces then if you don't like the way our space works. But I think that's our job then to interrogate who owns spaces. A lot of these schools where racism is prevalent are former Model C schools, have a really bad history of racism. And I think obviously there are remnants of apartheid in a lot of those schools. So there is really no choice, I think, that we should be giving people. We live in democratic South Africa, and by choosing to live here, by choosing to have your schools here, all of your schools are then sort of compelled to change and deal with this issue. Racism, I think, is something that you can't defer and say we'll deal with it later on. I think it's especially important to tackle it from a young age, as with other forms of bigotry. But I think, yeah, exactly what Mohammed Uzair said. If we want to say, the older generation, they are stuck in their ways, leave them. Then the younger generation can't be living in a world where it's acceptable to have schools based on whatever race you are. I think that would be a really, really huge step backwards.
And Zahid, what are your thoughts?
I mean, if we're talking about racism so many years after apartheid, it actually tells us a lot about how far we've actually come since then. And I think this is it's one of the main issues, as you mentioned. It's the elephant in the room, and we actually have to deal with it right now. And I think it's got to be tackled from a young age. It's not something that you're born with, like Mohammed Hussein mentioned. It's something that's instilled within a child from a young age, and the very fact that people are doing this in 2021, it speaks a lot about our society and how we feel about these issues. And I think it has to be tackled from a young age, from now. And also the people who are responsible for this and people who are responsible for perpetrating racism within our communities, unfortunately, in very often it is that they are protected, just like as is the case with many other issues. If you look at sexual abuse, for example, certain individuals who are guilty of doing this stuff are actually protected by the people around them. And so we've got to change this. We've got to change the mindset and the ideas of
All right, gender-based violence is another issue that I would like us to talk about, especially in our Muslim communities, especially when it's perpetrated by someone who is looked on as a public person, a religious person, a religious figure. So obviously, someone like that can't be can't perpetuate to GBV. So we're going to take a quick break, and we will continue thereafter.
Is it our range of exclusive, high-end, luxurious jewellery? Or is it our master craftsmanship of all your bespoke jewellery needs? We believe it's because at Randery Jewellers, we know just how to make your special moments last forever. Whether it's for a wedding, anniversary, or just a simple gift to show your love, trust Randery Jewellers to make it special. www.randeryjewellers.com. Make your moments last forever with Randery Jewellers, the family name you can trust.
From the townships of South Africa, the refugee camps in Syria, or orphanages in Yemen, the eyes of the needy speak volumes with just one glare. We know what it's like to be at ground zero, with food essentials, clothing and blankets, fresh water portal trucks, and even on-site navigators. We use every cent to better their tomorrow. Become part of our journey to bring relief to all. Go to www.ashrafulaid.org or call us on 011-809-8181. Ashraful Aid, under the auspices of Maulana Suhail Wadi.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
These days, I'm more health conscious than ever. So tonight it's stir fry for dinner, cooked in healthy Helios pure sunflower cooking oil. Helios is pure sunflower goodness, packed with omega-6. That's good for your heart and is approved as part of the Heart and Stroke Foundation eating plan.
Dinner's ready!
Helios, pure sunflower cooking oil. A healthy family is a happy one.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Welcome back. You are listening to the special Youth Day program on the Mid-Morning Talk on Salam Media with me, Maria Mukwanda. It is 12:34. Still joining me are our youth activists and leaders, Hafid Mohammed, Uzair Bamche, Amara Garda, and Zahid Jadwat. Shukran for staying with me. Now, before the break, we were discussing the issues of racism as well as other issues affecting the youth. But another one is that of gender-based violence. I mean, we know the situation of GBV in South Africa. We hear about it. But how do we handle it as a community, as a Muslim Indian community? I feel like this is a topic that we sometimes like to stay away from. Something that we don't want to really tackle because we don't want to expose people. And it is something that we should be discussing. We should openly talk about gender-based violence, especially if it's coming from someone who is well known in the community. We cannot avoid it. We should be talking about it, and brushing it under the carpet is not going to solve the situation. So anyone who would like to comment can go ahead.
Yeah, I'll take that one first. I think a lot of the work in activism that I've been trying to do is, it's sort of something you have to deal with as a young person in South Africa. Whether you want to or not, gender-based violence is always somewhere lurking around you. And it's interesting because when I've had conversations about gender-based violence, I have never met someone that thinks gender-based violence is okay, particularly when it's perpetrated against small kids. But when you say, these are the steps that we can take, then people start getting uncomfortable. So it's an issue, I think, similar to racism, where you want it to be solved, but you don't really want to do the difficult work that it takes to actually solve it. When it comes to, the stories that I've heard about the violence that's perpetrated against students in madrasas, against students in health classes, basically the Muslim community, I think, in South Africa likes to pretend as if this is not an issue in our community. So they can acknowledge South Africa has a GBV problem, South Africa has a sexual violence problem, but somehow the Muslim community is exempt from that, which is absolutely false. And I think people can tell themselves that lie because, as you've said, we like to push this under the carpet. But honestly, there is no carpet big enough to hide all of the flaws and all of the crimes that people have committed in this community. And I think one thing that's important to note, in South Africa, we have a gender-based violence problem. And I think a lot of that comes from knowing that it's not likely that if you perpetrate violence, you'll be caught. We sort of know how bad police are at finding those who are guilty. So similarly, in the Muslim community, you can continue doing whatever you feel like doing because no one is really going to stand up to you and say, sorry, you cannot be an imam if you are guilty of sexual assault. You cannot be, renowned as a scholar that people come to for advice when after your sessions, you engaged in some sort of harassment. I think people know that they have a lot of leeway if they do one or two good things for the community. And it's not just scholars. I think there's other people who fund certain projects in the community, are well respected in that sense. Maybe they donate a lot of money. And it's almost, no, okay, because they do so much good, whatever else they're doing is irrelevant, which I think is really horrible. And I hope will change. Personally, when I've spoken about this issue before, I've been called really bad words. Other activists in this space have been called worse things. Some of them have been threatened. Some of them are told, you're trying to divide the Ummah. My question would be, is the division calling out what has been done, or is the division perpetrating what has been done? Because I honestly don't want to be in unity with anyone that thinks gender-based violence is okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is not an okay issue. And you cannot protect the perpetrator as a community. If you know someone who is doing this here, do you feel that it's best to protect the perpetrator or to protect the person who is involved in this, the perpetrated? I mean, it does not make sense why you would want to protect somebody who is guilty of such crimes, thinking, oh no, he can't possibly do that. I mean, he's such a good person. He gives us so much money. He does that. She does this. I mean, we cannot sideline women in the gender-based violence as well. Mohammed, what are your thoughts on GBV?
Oh, Mariam, I'm so happy that you asked such a question because especially when you link it to religious leaders. But Amara has addressed a lot on the religious leaders. I would like to just move it a little bit on. Apart from the religious leaders, we know that they are doing it. We know that people are sweeping it under the carpet. But as Amara said, how big is the carpet? And eventually it's going to come out. And when it comes out, it's not going to be nice, firstly. But just to derail a little bit from that, but still staying on the topic, if you look at family members, within uncles, aunties, even who can be out to parents, what has been kind of seen as a taboo thing, to speak about these things here. But at the end of the day, if your daughter is being sexually harassed or she's a victim of gender-based violence, a survivor, and they come to you and they tell you, look, this has happened. What do you do? Do you keep quiet and tell her, oh, you know what, we'll sort it out. Don't say anything just to keep the peace in the family? Or do you address the issue? It's sad to see that in today's day and age, and it has been happening, that families do not want to accept that these things are happening. It's parents that do not want to accept that these things are happening to their daughters, to their sons. And it's really sad to see that, especially by Muslim people, trying to hide these things and not address it. I'm not saying, if it's a family member going 8 out, then I'm not saying that there's always a middle path to take. But what I'm saying is address the issue, because the psychological trauma that this has on an individual, I mean, you cannot comprehend it. And if they do not get the help that they deserve, not require, because they deserve to be helped, it's their right to be helped. Unfortunately, later on in life, in their marriages, when they are parents, unfortunately, it's going to affect them either way. So are you actually contributing to your child's well-being, or are you taking them off completely and causing more psychological trauma to them? Then that kind of opens up more doors for harm in terms of your own relationship with your child. Tomorrow, something worse might happen. Would they actually come to you? Are you giving them a hearing? And it's usually, especially within our Indian community and other communities as well, it's been masked as, oh, you know what? It's your uncle. You cannot do that. We can't tell him this. What will the people say? But I mean, when the child is suffering, and when that child becomes an adult and they are still suffering, then where's the uncle in all this? Are they part of the problem or the solution? So I think I think parents need to be more aware about these things. It's happening under your noses, and you need to listen to your children when they bring these topics to you. You need to listen to it. You need to address it, and obviously, whatever you address it in a sensible manner. You don't have to be harsh about it. Do it with dignity and respect. But please do address these things. Your children out there are suffering.
And when do we address these issues, Zahid? Or do we address them at the moment it is brought up, or do we address them, whenever it seems convenient enough to address?
I mean, it's happening all the time. And I think Amara is well versed on the topic of gender-based violence. She's an activist in that space, so she can actually speak a lot more about that. But I want to just speak a bit about my experience in madrasa. So when I was doing IVs, and I was in madrasa for about 2 or 3 years, so I would know what was happening in this. So I just want to zoom on that. The corporal punishment that actually happens in those madrasas, obviously there are one or two scholars who would refrain from hitting the students and stuff, but unfortunately the reality is that the majority of these scholars are actually beating their students up in the madrasas. And this is actually not even correct. It's not the correct way to teach your students. And I think if we can't trust the very people who are supposed to be teaching us knowledge and teaching us deen, it makes it a bit difficult to speak about this stuff. And I think the scholars actually have a huge influence on the communities. And what they've got to do, I think, in order for us to actually move on and address these issues, they've got to use the power and influence that they've got from the top of the pulpit. They've got to speak about these issues. And they've got to, as taboo as it may be within the communities, they've actually got to speak about it and raise the alarm regarding this. And we've also got to empower the youngsters and the women in particular, if we're talking about GBV, how they can react to this and how they can actually stand up for themselves and take action against whatever violations they may be experiencing.
All right, to my panelists, we're going to take the last break, a quick one, and some takeaway points thereafter.
The Africa Muslims Agency teams are on the ground facilitating emergency food and medical assistance to the affected families. Donate 15,000 rand or any amount and help the people of Palestine. Call AMA now on 083-251-9376 or donate online at africamuslimsagency.co.za. Africa Muslims Agency, inspiring the spirit of giving.
Kids these days are smart, and when you're competing for their attention against their smartphones, you need to make smart choices, like using Sunfoil triple refined pure sunflower oil in every meal you make. It's naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether you're cooking, frying, or baking, you get the great tasting results that'll get their attention faster than the latest app. And if that doesn't work, change the Wi-Fi password. Sunfoil. Now we're cooking.
Once again, Maulana Timol will be doing the annual Qurbani. Many people in the villages live well below the poverty line and only eat meat on the days of Eid al-Adha. Support this cause at 1,785 Rand for 7 shares or 255 Rand per share. Contact Maulana Timo, Maulana Sajjad, Maulana Hamad or Maulana Abbad on 011 852 6324 or 8613 or 072-299-9268. All slaughtering will be supervised by a team of ulama. Visit www.operationqurbani.org.za.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Welcome back to this special Youth Day broadcast of the mid-morning talk on Islam Media with me, Mari Mukwanda. And if you've just joined us, unfortunately, you've missed out on a great show, a powerful indeed, and still with my panelists who are going to give us some takeaway points. We have Hafid Muhammad, Uzair Banji, Amara Garda, and Zahi Jadwat. Shukran to all of you for staying with us. And before we love and leave you, or you love and leave us, what are some takeaway points for the youth in South Africa, for our government, for our families, our communities? Amara, Bismillah.
I mean, I think we could have an entire show just about takeaway points. That is, I think, the extent of the challenges the youth face. I think linked to a lot of these problems would be the problem of youth unemployment in South Africa. I don't think we can really discuss any of the challenges that we face without bringing to light just how devastating youth unemployment really is. So, I mean, statistically, 74% of the youth in South Africa are unemployed, but statistics often, I think, make us feel very removed. What we need to do is constantly remind ourselves of what that means. What does it actually mean to be unemployed? And for a young person particularly, we, I think, sometimes speak about young people as if they are just lazy, doing nothing, waiting for life to sort of give them everything. But the reality in South Africa is that a lot of the opportunities that youth should have are just not there. Sometimes they aren't stable enough. So linked to things like being vulnerable to gender-based violence, being vulnerable to poverty, includes, the economic issues that we face in South Africa, and pretty much all of the problems that South Africa as a country has. You can bet that the youth are severely affected on all of those issues. So if we look at unemployment, the youth are affected the most. If we look at poverty, the youth are affected the most. There is pretty much every situation that we face, the youth bear the brunt of those problems. So I would say that in terms of giving a message to politicians, I know there's some Youth Day celebrations happening today. Honestly, most of us are tired of hearing the youth are the future. We need to value them and we need to take the lead from them now. We know that. We've known that for the longest time. What we really would like is real opportunity and real commitment, not just words, in terms of policy, in terms of actually engaging with the youth. We know Parliament is incredibly old. We need more young people in those decision-making passages. So I would say, take youth voices seriously, whether you agree with whatever the youth are saying or not. Pay attention to us, because honestly, as I said earlier, once people start taking young people seriously, I do think that's the only way we'll sort of get out of all the problems that we face. In terms of messages to young people directly, whether other people are supporting you or not, please keep doing what it is that you are doing. Look for other young people who are like-minded and who can support you through whatever you are pushing for. I think if other people are not going to support us, then we, at the very least, need to support each other. Shukran so much for this chat, though. I've really enjoyed it. I think we need to have more of these types of honest discussions.
Mm-hmm. All right, and Mohammed, what are your takeaway points?
So, as we discussed throughout, I mean, the youth are the future, and if you have to look at it, as Amara mentioned, politicians have been saying, the youth's future, there's so much to come. But talk is cheap, in all honesty. Politicians need to start delivering. Apart from them, let's look at it from a micro systemic level, and then move towards the other systems. I mean, if each household gets involved in whatever way that they can, when someone comes and begs and asks for bread or whatever it might be, instead of giving them that bread, ask them, you know what, find something to do, even if it might be cleaning the garden, but create an opportunity like that. So you instill that work ethic within them. You know, it might even, once you start chatting with these individuals that are actually doing it, it's not that they don't want to work. It's just that there's a lack of opportunity. So if businesses can start and uniting, even if corporates hire an extra intern, 1 or 2 extra interns, that's 1 or 2 extra human beings that's in your company, but how many families are actually benefiting from that? You know, I learned a lot from one of the companies actually, and I feel it's important to mention them. They were on the show before, from Merck Research, where they actually it's clinical research, but they actually offered opportunities to graduates fresh out of university, and these graduates are now in top international companies. So fresh out of university, they provided opportunities where management kind of said, you know what, we don't need so much. Let's help other people. If government is not doing it, I mean, how long are we going to wait on them? So that's just the first thing. The second thing, the message I'd like to give to the youth, especially, is that you need to work hard. Don't expect everything on a silver platter. Unfortunately, it's reality. There are many people out there like you. So strive, do your best in whatever you do. Make sure you do it properly. You know, don't give up. And it's easier said than done. You know, you tell someone be strong. How do they be strong? How can they be strong? But at the end of the day, look at who supports you. For teachers out there, I think, I mean, as Amara said, we can have a whole discussion on this, but I think teachers are one of the core aspects of youth development. So don't look down upon these children in school. Don't treat them badly. Uplift them, motivate them. Youth learn how to network. Whatever opportunity you have, carry yourself in a respectable manner, regardless of who you meet. Whether it's a beggar, whether it's someone extremely wealthy or successful, because at the end of the day, it's only your respect and your dignity that will take you further. There's so much more I can actually say, but I see time is not on our side today. So I'd like to end on that.
All right, Shukran. Zahid, quickly, what are your takeaway points?
All right, 2 things. I think firstly for the youth and fellow young South Africans, I think you've got to get moving. You must stand up now, and I think we've got to start taking action for ourselves, or else we'd just lose our future, and we obviously don't want that. So I think we've got to start taking action for ourselves. And when I say that, I mean in terms of the unemployment rate amongst young South Africans, amongst the youth, it's over 60% and it keeps climbing. I think we've got to now find that entrepreneurial spirit within each individual and actually see how we can use that to contribute towards the economy and the creation of jobs. I always believe do not be a job seeker, but rather be a job creator. And that's one thing about the entrepreneurial spirit. And then my message to the leaders and political leaders, and especially, is stop being selfish. Give us a chance to actually grow and develop, and give us a chance for our future. Don't let your selfish motives be what drives you to actually fill these leadership positions, because then you simply are doing us a disservice and you're ruining the future for everyone. So, of course, I do plead with I plead with the leaders and political leaders in particular, stop the corruption and please give us an opportunity to actually grow a future for ourselves. And I think that's all I have to say right now.
All right, very beautiful and important takeaway points there. Shukran to all of you for taking out the time on your public holiday to have this panel discussion. And definitely we have a long way to go as the youth of South Africa, and government needs to step up, and we need to hold people accountable for what they promise to do and are not doing. Enjoy the rest of your days, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All right, that was Amara Garda, a research intern at Socioeconomic Rights Institute of South Africa, and also the head of politics, South African and international affairs at the Union of Muslim Students. Also, Hafid Mohammed Ozair Bamji, a master's student in psychology at UKZN, and also head of campus affairs and emerging markets for the MSA Union, and our journalist, South African writer, podcaster, and broadcaster Zahid Jadwat, also the host of the special focus on Salam Media. That was our panel discussion for today. Do share your thoughts on this by leaving a comment in the comment section below. And you can also send them to us on our WhatsApp line 061 766 on Youth Day. Where do we stand as the youth of South Africa? And are we getting to where we need to be? Are we really the future of tomorrow with our situation of today? It is 12:57. We will be right back.